Support for this podcast comes from Dynamic. Since 1982, Dynamic Air Quality Solutions has been the leader in designing, manufacturing, and distributing IAQ products to the commercial and residential markets through authorized HVAC contractors. Our products are based on science and logic. We provide ongoing world-class technical and communication training for your entire team. They'll learn to understand and believe in the products and to communicate IAQ challenges and solutions in layman's terms on every call. Our training is educational, fun, and entertaining. You'll be assigned a world-class IAQ trainer and territory manager for technical support and to plan your training on an ongoing basis. Partner with us and enjoy the benefits of the science of clean air. For more information, visit worldclassiaq.com.
Welcome to Successful Contractor, powered by CertainPath, formerly Success Group International, a show for residential contractors about residential contractors. We chronicle business journeys, share insights, and celebrate successes in this wonderful industry. I'm your host, Bob Houchin. As a reminder, all episodes of The Successful Contractor are available on YouTube as well as your podcast player of choice. And for more information on how CertainPath can put your contracting company on a certain path to success, visit our website, www.mycertainpath.com, or give us a call at 866-299-8505. Today's show is another CertainPath member discussion. These are interactive, live programs where I interview CertainPath members on a particular finite topic. The topic of this call, budget and invoice review. I'll let my guest introduce himself in just a moment. I hope you enjoy it and you take away a nugget or two. Hello there, everyone. My name is Bob Houchin. I'm honored to host another CertainPath member discussion. CertainPath member discussions are your opportunities to hear from members like you, explain what they're doing to be successful. Think of it as a little slice of expo coming to you through your computer or phone. Today's topic is one that's timely. It's P&L and invoice review. Now, last month we talked about building a strategic plan, so we thought it made sense to kind of talk about how we review and change that plan as the year progresses. Quick reminder as we talk about the topic, if you have a question, write it in the box at the bottom of your screen. The last 10 minutes or so of the hour, I will ask our panelists those questions. Speaking of panelists, we had two lined up. Unfortunately, Mr. Joe Voci just texted me this morning, ended up in the hospital with a pretty severe illness. Thankfully, he was released, but he's not in the physical capacity to be on today. But we do have another outstanding panelist, and I'm very excited to introduce him and have him join us, and that's Mr. Jim Bodine of CJS Heating and Air Conditioning in Columbus, Dayton, Kokomo, Springfield, Ohio, and Indiana and beyond. So all over the Midwest. Jim, can you turn your camera on for me? Oh, there he is. Hey, Jim, how are we doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Bob?
I'm doing great. Jim, I always appreciate your willingness to help out. I don't think there's anyone that's more generous with his time to help other people and certainly help us at CertainPath help motivate and help other contractors. He's part of our executive advisory board, just a good dude. So I appreciate you making time for us because I know you're always on the move.
My pleasure.
Now, where are you today? What office are you at today?
Yeah, this isn't my normal office. This is one of our sales project managers. We call our salespeople project managers. So it's his office. I'm in Kokomo, Ohio, or Kokomo, Indiana today. I don't even know where I'm at.
That's all right. I threw you off by, yeah, that's all right. That's great. Now, just some quick background for people. So maybe kind of just share in just a minute, like your story. How did you grow what location came first and then all the way to your last one?
Yeah, so we started in March of 1994, ground up. I passing out flyers and telemarketing, and that location was March of 1994. Yeah. Is when we started that in Dayton, Ohio. When we joined SGI or CertainPath, we about 3 years into it, I started realizing that I wanted to do more than just be a manager within my company, and I wanted to do acquisition. My intention was to find some companies to fold in. I happened to kind of run across some opportunities for some friends that were in the business that happened to be SCI members too that wanted to retire, and they one of them sold their business to me basically at the very beginning of 2017, and another one sold their business to me in the beginning of 2019, and that was Swiss Air out of Columbus was the 2017, and then Rex Byers out of Kokomo, Indiana in 2019. And we're always on the hunt. We're still looking. We want to buy more locations. We want to grow that way. We wouldn't mind folding a few in either. It's just we haven't had much luck finding people that want to really change, because we can't operate under two names in one market. So
Sure. Well, I keep waiting for a CJS in every town in America, knowing how ambitious you are.
I know. So we say CJS. We say CJS means yes, and it's our goal to yesify the nation.
I love it. What are you guys going to end up doing? If you don't mind me asking, total revenue this year? What's all going to do together?
10 mil altogether. Yeah.
That's
so
great. Good for you.
Yeah.
Starting from
and
a guy that was doing new construction and didn't have any background in service and replacement. So that's incredible. Good for you, Jim.
Absolutely not. That's correct.
Yeah. Well, great. There's a lot of new members that come on, a lot of people that maybe are brand new or only been with the group for a little while, or people that are listening and watching from outside. So it's always good to give a little background on those on those guests. So thank you very much. So I'm guessing so let's talk about your P&L. Do you set it yourself every year? How much input do your fellow managers, because you have a manager at every separate location, right? So who helps you construct that?
Well, as far as when you talk about P&Ls from the budget standpoint, is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, I set the budgets, and I do get their input. I do every 3-week meetings with my team. The managers that report to me, we call them success paths, and in those success paths, we'll adjust budgets and stuff like that. But we generally use a 22 to 25% growth is what we're usually looking for. And so we'll look at 3 years worth of history and kind of, come up with something that's reasonable, because sometimes you'll have a month that maybe exploded in a not, and that's why we use 3 years, because you go, okay, that's not normal for that month to have exploded. Right. So we won't necessarily plan for a growth month there, but vice versa, you'll also have a month that maybe dipped in a time when it's not normal, and so you'll maybe have a bigger growth month planned for there. But overall, it's about 22 to 25% is what we're looking to grow year over year.
Is it primarily seasonality that drives the booms and the lack of seasonality, the dips, or is it sometimes performance in a certain location and just not having the right people or the right training at a certain time?
I've seen it happen both ways.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, if the weather, we try not to be driven by the weather. We have quite a few maintenance contracts, over 6,000 maintenance contracts. So we try not to be driven by the weather. We have plenty of maintenance contracts to go do, but it's always much better financially, as everybody knows on this meeting, when you can run demand calls, and the lead turnovers from that are much more abundant. And but I've also seen where you have a manager that just doesn't get it, or sometimes a manager goes into a slump or something like that, and you gotta coach them out of that, and or sometimes maybe you got the wrong person on the wrong seat of the bus. So
sure. That you said, was it 22 to 25% you try to build in growth every year?
Yeah, I usually budget 22 to 25%. Yeah.
22 to 25.
Some of my managers are like, let's do 10. I'm like, let's do 22.
Yeah. Sure. How long is that? Have you always had that, or have there been moments like where you've doubled the first couple of years, maybe you really implemented the system? And I mean, is that something most other members should aim to do, that 22 to 25? Is that reasonable?
I think it's doable. We've struggled a little bit over the last couple of years ourselves in that area, but I'm not giving up on it. In the past, I've hit it out of the park quite a few times, and I know it's doable. And I put the pressure on. I'm still in charge of the marketing in the company. I do have marketing companies that work for us. That I'm in other words, I'm a I guess, a tool in the marketing, if you will,
Sure.
because
Yeah.
I hire professionals. But I put the pressure on ourselves to get that job right, and then of course I put the pressure on the managers to make sure that we're making the most out of our opportunities. So
Right. What's the biggest driver to get that 22 to 25%? I mean, obviously you want to keep your expenses reasonable, but is it just adding trucks and adding people, or you can't really expect your people to get better, right? The performance, maybe you increase your prices so they're going to generate additional revenue that way. Is it primarily the addition of trucks and sales folks?
So, I always start with fundamentals, right? So, making sure that we have the right, call, make sure that when the calls come in the building that we're getting them closed.
Right.
That's get the calls in the building
Yeah.
and then get them closed. And then once you get them closed, they get distributed to their departments, right? So you have your maintenance department, your service department, and your sales department. And then each one of those departments has a KPI that they're running by, and then making sure that those KPIs are being hit. And so if you're closing at the right percentages, whether it be closing on the original phone call that came in the building, and your KPIs are good, you have the right ticket average and the right closing rate once you get out into the field. There really is only one other thing, and that's call volume. And so, but call volume really should it should be analyzed first, but it should be addressed almost last, because you don't want to increase call volume if you're only closing 50% of the calls that are coming into the building.
Sure.
Your goal should be to close more of those calls, not to get the phone to ring more.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So in those cases, if all those KPIs are being met, it's generally then, again, all the KPIs are being met. It's a manpower. It's a call issue, getting more calls in, and then a manpower issue. Correct.
And then a manpower issue. Yeah. And so for instance now, and Dayton, we've struggled at times to, we could do more volume than what we do, but we've struggled to keep it. It's not that we're necessarily struggling to find people; we're actually struggling to keep people. So, and we got to look in the mirror and constantly get better at that. But
Sure,
that's caused us some growth problems because we, you lose people, and conservatively, each one of a field person can generate, depending on whether it's installer or service, on a very, very low conservative scale, about $1,200 per day per person. So, now installers are going to generate more, and sometimes service techs will generate less, but we've come up with an average of a very conservative small number, about $1,200 a day for our company per person. So when you're down somebody, that's, for 21 days, that's well over $21,000, and you get down 3 of those, that's $60,000, and that makes a difference.
Well, no, and by putting a number to it, it becomes a little more real if you think of it in that capacity. So definitely. Well, I'm sure you're recruiting every day, but yeah, who this is a side question. Who is managing your recruiting for you guys in all these locations?
So currently we employ a gentleman in the house that does recruiting for us. It's his, I will say it's his 3/4 time job. He's also a very seasoned tech and seasoned employee with CJS. So he does the technical training in the morning with the teams, and he puts those together, or he's taken old programs that he's run and he tweaks them and makes them a little better. And he runs training with the team, and the team has to get a test every morning. They go to a Google Meet, like we're on now, webinar, and they when they're done with it, they have to take a test. They have to get 100. And so he does that first in the morning, and then when he's done with that, about 9-10 o'clock, he goes into recruiting mode, and that's what he does all day.
Oh, that's neat. Hey, yeah, it's no, there's no certain way to form a company or have certain roles. You find the right people and you find the right seat for them, right? So that's interesting.
Yeah, we've discussed bringing on a second recruiter. We haven't made that commitment, but we actually discussed it just because of the value of what one person missing in the company is. So.
Sure. Okay, let's get back to the budget talk. So how often are you reviewing that? Is that are you looking at it all the time? And then what kind of meetings do you have to review it with your managers?
So we do a morning huddle, and we look at income. We're looking at income every single day.
Yep.
We're looking at growth, actual P&L, gross margin numbers, and then operating expense numbers and that kind of thing. We're looking at that as close to the 10th as possible. So
Okay.
my accounting team has been fantastic about getting our books done on
Yep.
time. Usually I have them by the 9th, sometimes
Right.
the 8th, but at the very worst on the 10th. For instance, I got the books completed exactly on Friday, and I was able to look them over this weekend. I was able to look over all the numbers this weekend, and then I do all the analyzation of that,
Yeah.
and then I go to the manager from there and work
Okay.
on. Like for instance, here in Kokomo, we had a gross margin issue. One of the first questions I asked when I got here is, "How do we have a gross margin issue last month?"
Right.
And I found out that we had to replace a couple of ductless split units under warranty that the manufacturer didn't cover the units, but we wanted to do a good thing for the customer. Well, that was $10,000, and for the Kokomo budget, that affected the gross margin. So.
Sure. You're answering my questions before I ask them. I was going to ask about troubleshooting. So once you look at the numbers and you go, you mentioned gross margin. Let's maybe get a little more dialed in than just gross margin, like materials and equipment. If those look high, it's so the first call is the manager right away, and then it's just hey, why is it? And kind of talk how you coach that moment.
Well, I drill down myself the best I can while I'm doing the original analysis.
Yeah.
My financial analysis usually takes me anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a month. Sometimes I'll spend more time on it, sometimes less. I guess you could say an average of 6. I usually work from home on the day that I do the financial analysis, just so I'm not being bothered quite as much. And then I make the notes of what needs to be addressed with the management team. And then usually for them it's mostly a gross margin issue that they're responsible for. They do have some net responsibility or some operating expense responsibility.
Sure.
But for the most part, most of what they can affect is on the gross margin side of things. So I really work hard with them on making sure that our gross margin is correct. And if not, we focus on either labor. We've got our labor now. I created a special formula on our DMRs where you can see that total company labor every single day. You can see what it's at. We call it the salary cap. It's 30%.
Cool. Sports reference.
So,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it the salary cap. So, you can see where one of each location is trending every single day as far as the salary cap goes to 30%. And then so it could be labor, or it could be materials, and or it can be the equipment. So it could be the sales price too. So it all starts. We sell it for the right price.
So doing drops. Yep.
We sell it for the right price, and then what are we doing as far as purchasing? And a lot of times when things are getting kind of messy, what I have found, and I've went through this exercise quite a few times here recently, and we had a pretty good year for gross margin. We're right at 50%. And we're trying to get higher because I have people in my tag group that are even higher. So I'm shooting for higher next year. 55 is my target next year.
There you go.
We're when things get messy, a lot of times we just get dirty. That means we go out and we clean trucks and we find inventory laying around, or we sit down and talk about how they're utilizing labor and how we could better utilize labor. And usually those two things will fix the problem. It's hardly ever equipment, and when it is, it's because we had maybe we had to honor a guarantee or something, and the equipment ends up being like it was in Kokomo. You had $10,000 worth of equipment that was honored on a guarantee that the manufacturer isn't standing behind. So long story.
How about on the material side? Is that pretty? I mean, I know you're HVAC, so materials aren't a huge part like plumbing or electrical per se, but does that typically stay about right at where you want it?
When I find that the material's loose, it's usually I can usually see it starting to build up out in the warehouse, and where people are just bringing buckets of fittings or and just leaving stuff laying around. I can pick up on materials before it ever happens on the P&L. I just see it in the way things are organized. I can open the back of a truck and I can start spotting material problems that way. And the minute you get organized with your materials on your trucks, and you start really focusing on making sure that we're taking pieces out of the warehouse that got stacked in a corner over here or there, organize them and get them out of the warehouse as they're showing jobs, those problems just go away. I've never seen that be an issue if you stay organized.
Yeah. So you have these discussions about particular numbers that are off with your managers. How do you end that conversation? Do you ask them to come up with like an action plan, the next 2 or 3 steps to resolve it, or what do you do?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So we have an action plan. So what I do is at the end, we do what I call a success path with the team. Usually it's every 3 weeks, can vary a little bit, but usually it's every 3 weeks. And during that success path, we'll come up with 3, they'll have 7 fundamental items that they're in charge of. And one of those fundamental items is gross margin, right? And so if gross margin is an issue, they'll say, I'll say, okay, pick up to 3 things out of the 7. Those 7 things you're doing every single day, but pick 3 things that you're going to be laser focused on. Even though you're doing them all every day, pick 3 things that you're going to be laser focused. And it can be 1 thing if you want it. It doesn't have to be 3, but no more than 3. And then they'll say, okay, I want to work on gross margin. Well, then what specifically are we going to focus on? Well, I'm going to do some ride-alongs and figure out what guys are buying when they're going out to the supply houses. How they're storing materials or equipment, or I'm just going to focus on making sure that I don't have guys hanging out at the office and telling stories for hours on end, or or I'm going to focus on callbacks, or we'll look at different data points and go, okay, this is how we're going to fix it. But they can't just say I'm going to focus on gross margin. They have to give me steps that they're going to actual real steps they're going to focus on stuff.
That's great. You have the number and then the behavior to drive it. Yeah. That's great. That's a really good takeaway for people.
One of my managers recently said, I'm going to get a daily purchasing report and review it every single day for the next 3 weeks. And again, it's not something you're going to do forever.
Sure.
But for 3 weeks, she studied that to see if she could find issues. So.
Yeah, that's great. Now, these success paths, is this just a one-on-one conversation, or with you and the manager, or are these where you're talking with your group of managers and you?
The success paths are one-on-one. So each manager has they're always one-on-one. Yeah.
Okay, very good. How frequently do you talk to the whole management group about numbers and what's driving the success or the struggles, and maybe you can kind of get input from others, kind of group think through different problems? You guys get together frequently as a senior management team?
So we meet every morning for 15 minutes. It's our daily huddle. You get a lot done in those huddles. And a lot of times if there's something that needs to be taken offline with 1 or 2 of them, or even a group of them, we'll find time later on during the day, or maybe even right after the huddle to have another meeting on particular topics. And then as a management team, we meet quarterly.
You meet quarterly.
And we meet quarterly. When we have those quarterly meetings, we go to a location. We pick a different location every time. And we first meet with their team on the first day, and we kind of go through what are we doing that we should keep doing? What are we doing that we should stop doing? And what are we not doing that we should start doing?
Yeah.
We intrigue them with those questions and get lots of good feedback from the team with those questions. And the next day, we also have a document that we all collaborate on of topics that we're going to meet on the next day. And we may talk about some things that the team discussed, plus things that are on our document that we need to get tweaked as a group. So
it's almost like those Profit Platoon on-sites. It kind of sounds like a similar format.
It's exactly what it is. That's where we got it from, by the way.
That's great.
That's exactly what it is. That's how we developed it. We're like, we're going to treat each location like we're a profit platoon.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, that's great. So then every quarter you have new initiatives that okay, we need to do X, Y, and Z to get better. That's
Mhm.
great. I
Yeah.
wanted to talk, before we pivot a little bit, I wanted to talk about operating expenses. You refer to
Mhm.
advertising, right? That's the big driver of sales, assuming, and that
Mhm.
drives everything. So how much does your advertising expense fluctuate throughout the year? Do you start pumping it up a couple months before those typical shoulder seasons, or what's your approach?
Well, we've struggled a little bit to grow since COVID era started. Unlike a lot of content, and that, by the way, that there should be no excuse for that. I don't. I take that
Understood.
personally. That's on me. I need to fix that. But um, I've seen too many other individuals that in my tag groups and across the country that are just exploding, and the data says that people have exploded. So we failed in several different areas that we've already talked about here, actually, as far as growth goes. But the reason why I bring that up is because we've experienced it on both sides. We've had massive growth,
Yeah.
and then we've had a little bit of shrinkage, if you will,
Okay.
and then we've had maintaining, right? And
Hmm.
so when you're growing and everything's exploding, it feels like you're doing everything right. But when you're having shrinkage, it feels like you're doing everything wrong.
Sure.
And so it's just constantly focusing on what you can control to improve the numbers. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, but on that advertising side, is it consistent, or does it go up and down? For people trying to plan out their marketing plan is kind of what I'm trying to give a little nugget to them.
yes. So when we were exploding, I would see like 6 and 7%. We would plan for 10%, but
Okay.
it would end up being at like 6 and 7%, right?
I gotcha.
And then when we were maintaining, I've never seen it really get. I always try to control it a little better when we're maintaining or not growing. I would keep it right around that 10%, but I've seen it get a little higher than 10, maybe 11. But I'm always trying to rein it back in at that point. I'll try to make quarterly adjustments to kind of fix that to keep it within that 10% range. I like the 7 to 10%. It's a nice
Yeah.
sweet spot. I've heard some people say 12. I've never played in that arena, but
Sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. For 10 is typically, I think, what we always say. Is it just the pay per click isn't enough, or what? Which one are you not spending enough on when it dips down, and then you can see that reflect throughout the company?
So recently we've come to the conclusion that we're not doing enough direct
Mail.
marketing,
Okay.
just direct marketing where we're asking for a sale. We've done a lot of branding, like 95+% of what we've done has been all branding. And
Yeah.
so recently we've decided to do more direct marketing where we're asking people to,
Okay.
do a tune up or take advantage of a financing offer or something along those
Okay.
lines. And we just literally just started that at Thanksgiving this year. I've been
Okay.
talking about it since last spring, and we just started that, and we are seeing some uh, some ramp up, if you will, direct response marketing. We are seeing some ramp up there, but we're still early in the process. We really have not done any direct response marketing and I include Google pay per click in that. We just
Yeah.
ramped up our Google pay per click program. So
Okay.
so we're kind of new in that arena. I say new. We did it a decade ago, and then we just haven't had to do it, and we got a
Sure.
little spoiled. And now we're back to okay. We need to make this a bigger part of what we do.
Sure.
And I got that feedback from other members too, by the way, that
Yeah.
we need to do more of that. So
Now you do TV and radio, correct? I mean, that's a big chunk of your spend. So more of that direct
Yep.
response. It's asking, hey, we've got a discounted tune-up. Hey, we have a financing offer. Though that's where it's also being reflected. Those changes
Yeah,
in
well,
messaging.
in our TV and radio ads, we did literally next to none of that. And then
Right.
now, since like I said, around Thanksgiving, now we're starting to add those type of commercials into the rotation, as well as pay per click, as well as email campaigns, is what we've done so far. So
Okay. What's the financing offer you're promoting?
we're just something simple. I don't like to give away margins. I just hate it. The whole direct response thing is like anti what I want to be doing. So
Yeah.
I just have this thing about it, but
Sure.
so I'm not even. All I'm doing is promoting something that we offer pretty much routinely. It was our 12 months no payments program. So that's my direct response. Or I have reduced our cleanings, our tune-ups, if you will, down to from $130 to $99. So those are the two offers that I put out there. I've yet to give into the free furnace stuff, and that kind. I resist it really, really bad. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just feel it's anti what we put out on the radio and the TV. It's just been total opposite to what we've marketed over the years. So it's been really hard for me to do the whole direct response. But we got to do it. We recognize that it's part of how we got to grow.
Support for this podcast comes from Owens Corning Air Care Contractor Program. Uncover hidden opportunities and take your HVAC business to the next level with Owens Corning. Owens Corning has done the work to provide you with a turnkey system, from sales training to in-home tools, with a simple story that practically sells itself. Add duct replacement and attic insulation to your service offering as a part of our program and elevate your sales today. For more information, visit owenscorning.com/retrofitcontractor.
How about your vehicle percentage? I mean, it's bonkers the last year or two in terms of getting vehicles. Are you stockpiling? So does that number skew and get out of control? You're trying to buy trucks when you can get them, or what's your approach been to this weird new world we've been in?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
That's what I'm here for.
So in 2019, we had a pretty good year, and I did my vehicle planning. I work with Enterprise Fleets for my vehicle planning, and they were very helpful for me there. And so we ordered trucks, and then all of a sudden, none of these trucks came, and they were supposed to be here, in the summer of 2020, and then we didn't end up seeing them. They started trickling in at the end of 2020, and then they just all started showing up in 2022. So we had done a couple years worth of planning, and they just all started showing up at the same time. That's the bad news. The good news is, and then business started slowing down for us a little bit. So then we were like, well, maybe we wouldn't have ordered so many vehicles. But the good news is that we were selling our vehicles and getting like 3-4 times what we would have got out of them previously. So I kind of got the best of both worlds there as it settled down. But there for a while, it was kind of like they showed up when you didn't want them to show up in your busy season. They sat on the lots for a while before you could get them on the roads. You were essentially paying for a vehicle and you hadn't sold the other vehicle. You had double insurances and all this stuff going on. So for a while it got out of whack, but it's gotten, right now we've pretty much got an updated fleet for the most part. Our fleet is youthful, if you will, and the numbers have settled down there a little bit. So
that's great. When do you retire vehicles? Is there a set number? Or you just try to ride those suckers till they get to be too much of a headache?
I don't want to be the father of advice here, because I don't know that there's a magic number to this, but I will tell you what my philosophy is. Yeah. And my philosophy is that when I can sell a vehicle and it covers the wrap and the shelving and basically the outfitting of the new vehicle, if I can sell a vehicle and get enough money out of it to do all that for the new vehicle, that's when it's time to sell it. And that's usually in the $8,000 to $10,000 range. When I can sell a vehicle and get $8,000 to $10,000 out of it, sometimes less, but in that range, then I can go buy shelving and I can go buy my wraps for the new vehicle. Then I'm good with that. That's when I upgrade.
What's your maintenance schedule on those vehicles to make sure that you get the most out of them? Is it how frequently you get them serviced?
So we probably could be better at this, but we do have a dispatch team that helps keep an eye on that. Yeah. And the guys will let them know that, hey, listen, I'm at the oil change marker, and then we deal with we use Tire Discounters as the group that we use for our maintenance, and we have a relationship with them, so they're pretty good about going through their inspections and making suggestions. Good. And then I train the managers on which ones we do, what we'll do, and what we don't do. For me, I'll do pretty much almost any suggestion they make, except for transmission flushes. Because every time I've done a transmission flush, I've always, a month later, I got to replace the transmission. So
you flush the transmission. That's right. That's what it is.
So yeah,
that's good. That's a good nugget. All right. Well, let's transition a little bit. We know the first line items. gross sales, and we've talked about that. Well, actually, the one great way to drive gross sales, is reviewing tickets to ensure opportunities are not wasted. So being, the organization your size and multiple location, who is ultimately reviewing your service tickets and your sales tickets?
So it all starts with our dispatchers. So our dispatchers, they review every single ticket, and we're looking for each one of our technicians to have provided some customized solutions for the homeowner. And so we don't just ask them to put down suggestions. We ask them to put down why they suggested it.
Okay.
I did this because. And
Yeah.
and if the dispatcher feels like the technicians made suggestions just to appease a manager, if you will, the manager said I had to have three options, so I just copy and paste these same three options on every end. We don't want that. So if they see that, they're to stop and call the technician and ask them about that. And then maybe on their next call, they'll have them call before they put the options and coach them to, hey, what do we see on the system performance report? What kind of questions do we ask? What kind of answers did they give us to these, list of questions that we asked? And can we create a personalized or customized option based on those answers? So, and just really coaching the tech on how to get the proper, we want our techs to offer recommendations on every job. Every job we want them to make recommendations, but we don't want them to be cookie cutter. We don't want them to just be, the same three options every time. We want them to be personalized and customized to the scenario. And the dispatchers that's who holds them accountable for that.
Really? So it's a dispatcher only. It's not the dispatcher notices an issue and then alerts a service manager, and the service manager. It's your dispatchers that have that authority.
So the dispatchers will do the soft coaching, and then if the technician is, not responding, then they escalate it to the ops manager.
Okay, that's interesting. How about on the sales side? You see, maybe there's too many drops going on, or who's kind of keeping an eye on those all the time?
It's the same process, except for the ops managers. They're also asked to keep a closer eye on the actual sales calls. Okay. So the ops managers will act as the sales coaches to their sales team, and then from there, if the ops manager needs additional sales coach, we have this awesome guy named Bodine that works for us. He's a pretty good sales coach, and
know him a little bit,
he helps out there quite a bit. He trained all the ops managers how to be sales coaches, and so but they're asked to keep a closer eye on their sales team. They're told to rely on the dispatchers to check their technicians, and they'll escalate the technicians to the ops managers when there's an issue. The dispatchers also check the sales team. They make sure that the load calc was filled out and that the questionnaire was filled out and that that they went through the process and that they gave options and that they're personalized and customized and that they had reasons why they did. I did this because they go through all that with them.
Yeah.
But the ops managers also have to look at that. And I have, depending on their day, I'll have ops managers a lot of times will have their salespeople debrief almost every call. Maybe not exactly every call, but sometime during the day they'll debrief the calls with them. So,
how many they typically go running on a day? I mean, I guess varies. Maybe in the summer where you strike where the iron's hot, right? Maybe you run some more. Is it always 2 to 3?
We try to keep it at two calls a day. I've seen it get, up to 4 or 5. We know that we're failing them as a management team when we give them that many calls. I always say managers are their own worst enemy when it comes to dispatching calls when the weather's crazy, because we're telling them, take your time, and do things right and ask the right questions and be thorough. And then, it's busy. Go in 3 more calls. You're your worst enemy. You just, so we really work hard at trying not to do that to them. And if we are going to do that, we ask permission. That's how I train the managers. Ask permission. Hey, do you have time to run one more call? Can you work a little later tonight? Do you think you'll be able to serve the clients that you're working with now proper before you run the next call.
Does that come up? Is that you coaching your managers like in the huddles in the mornings and going, hey, I know it's 105 out, but let's not kill everyone, right?
Yes, those are common conversations that we have when we're getting ready to have some really cold weather.
Sure.
And that will be a common conversation. You know, I word it a lot like this, guys. We're just like coaches on the field, right? So if you watch your favorite sports team, good coaches know when to take their players out for a breather. You know, you just can't keep hammering them and expect them to perform right. That you got to know when to pull them out for a breather, right?
Sure.
And don't just assume that they'll run the extra calls. Ask, and people respond better when you ask than if you just assume. You know, most people in this industry know that there's going to be late nights, but don't just assume that because you were an HVAC tech that they're going to be willing to work a late night. You know, ask.
Yeah.
You know, same with a salesperson.
Sure. No, that's a good nugget for sure. On the service maintenance side, what are your kind of criteria you coach your technicians on when when a replacement system, should at least be offered, where you're flipping that lead? Is it, is it 10 years old, or there's a certain dollar amount on the repair?
Yeah, we use the straightforward pricing guide and the charts inside of that to kind of as a guideline. As a rule of thumb, 10 years is where we have the number set at, is when a unit is becomes an opportunity, if you will.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean every 10-year-old unit is going to become an opportunity, but that's when they can start to be looked at as an opportunity. I've seen some that became opportunities within 2 years or less.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's a 10-year or older system is when we've determined as a team that's when they're an opportunity. And when the repair at that point, depending on where you're at, but when your repair starts climbing into $300, $400, $500, that's also a good time. But to think about it. But at the end of the day, the way we present it is we want to present options to the client and let it be their decision. That's just one of the options. Would you like to, for example, if I was going out on a service call and you needed say a blower motor, right? And I would offer the blower motor repair as an option. I might, as a next level option, I might say a blower motor, and I ask myself, what else can fail? A blower motor and a capacitor, and maybe the blower motor wheel. That'd be another option. And I said, what else can fail that can cause that same problem? So then we might add blower motor, capacitor, wheel, and board. That'd be like your third option. Yeah. And then so you'd say, okay, here's your options. This is the top option. This is the to get fixed option. And we also, since we have these options and it's 10 years old, we also have the option for a project manager. So that's kind of what that would look like. And then we'd say, what do you think works best for you and your family? That's kind of how we go about that conversation.
Sure. Do you guys utilize the true cost calculator? Do you guys do that?
Yes. So when the customer starts asking questions, we'll then our goal is to always let the customer guide the customer to answer their own questions. Yeah. That's our goal. It doesn't always work that way, and some guys are getting better at it or working to get better at it. And if you're new, sometimes you're not any good at it. Sometimes when you're old, you're not any good at it, right? But but our goal, if we could draw up the picture perfect world, it would be that the customer says, you know what, based on this data, and we use the true cost calculator quite a bit. Yeah. But we let them answer the questions just the way it was designed originally. At least that was my understanding of how it was designed. Let them answer the questions and then ask them, do you think it would be best to invest this in your old system or spend it on a new system? What do you think would be best for you and your family?
No, that's great. That's great. A little pivot here on let's talking about your salespeople. We were talking about them and some of the pitfalls that can happen. How do you minimize, say, the confusion that happens between what the salesperson sold and what the install team understands that project to be? A lot of times that can lead to callbacks. So there's, I thought this was X, but it's Y. You know what I'm talking about. How do you kind of minimize that? Make sure that the system the customer bought was the one that's installed and they're happy with it.
So we've come up with levels. There's 3 different levels, and one of the levels, we'll just call it level 1. And I'm sorry, I might have them backwards. It's been a while since I looked at the levels. But let's just call it level 1. Level 1 might be a easy peasy change out, right? And so the project manager's responsibility at that point, take great pictures, make good notes, and then they just have to call the install team and go over the job with them.
Yep.
If they don't have much on their schedule, we ask them to go out and visit that job. If it's a level 2, then that means it's a full system. Full system means that we need to make a visit to the job site. Like, you also need to still gather good data, make good notes.
Yeah.
But make a visit to the job site. And if it's a level 3, which means we're doing a complete redesign, duct system, all that stuff, and that means you might have to make daily visits to the job site.
Okay.
And that's how we try to do that. Try to keep our that's the levels that we ask our project managers to go by. And that we try to keep our hands on things and keep them from getting out of control that way. So
that's great. That's great. Just a couple of kind of just one-off questions, and then I've got at least one question I see from the audience. If you are noticing, issues with either service or replacement tickets, I mean, we talked about the accountability factor of what you guys do. How much training? How does training change if you notice a technician, for example, is continually having problems offering correct options, or he's just slapping things down? Is that a one-on-one training opportunity? Or same thing with a salesperson? Say he goes, and I know you have your whole system, actually. It could be a whole another call on how you handle struggling salespeople, but maybe kind of talk about how you utilize one-on-one training with people that are struggling.
Yeah, so at first, it's again, the dispatcher's holding them accountable, and we catch that stuff. We tend to catch that stuff before it even shows up in the numbers, or at the same time it's showing up in the numbers, because once it gets escalated to the OM, then the OM's job is to bring that technician in for a one-on-one and coach them up. And we instruct the OMs, and I'm not saying it goes like this every time, but we instruct the OMs to treat it like they called in sick. So if those rest of the calls on that technician have to be rescheduled or whatever, we want to deal with that problem while it's warm, if you will. So we don't want to wait. We don't want that problem to cool off. We want to deal with that problem right away.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying if a technician has one bad ticket, but if we start seeing a little bit of a habit, and they're not responding to the coaching of the dispatching team, then that problem gets escalated, and it can be a project manager too. And then that gets escalated to the operations manager, and the operations manager does the one-on-one coaching. We haven't had to go down this road very often. It's happened a few times, but if somebody resists the one-on-one coaching, then we ask them to go home and make a decision. Whether they're committed to us or not, because we're not going to change the way we do things or what we expect. So if they seem to really just resist it at all areas, we'll ask them to go home and make a choice.
Sure. How about ride-alongs? How much of a tool is that in your arsenal to kind of help guys that are maybe scuffling a little bit? I mean, who does those? How often? When do those happen?
Ops managers do ride-alongs. I'd say weekly. They're in ride-alongs. I let them kind of pick their days. They just know that needs to be done. I would say that each ops manager is in a ride-along every week. Okay. At least one, and they'll just pick different individuals to go out with. Honestly, a lot of times we pick the stronger individuals to go out with, because you can't really fix. You can to me, you learn more from the stronger individuals, the people who have great results at doing ride-alongs, than you can fix when you ride along with somebody who has poor results. The poor result person usually is just fundamental habits that you don't need to do a ride along to see. But the person who's
it before you even get in the truck what's going on.
Yeah, but the person who's blowing it up, you want to learn what they're doing so you can continue teaching some of those habits to your other teammates. So that's generally what we do with ride-alongs. Although we have occasionally, we still do ride-along with people who are struggling every once in a while. I've seen recently, one of the most recent ones that I had a discussion with the manager on was that this guy was just taking too long. Great guy, we love him, he's awesome, but he's just taking too long. So I said, let's go out and find out why he's taking too long. Let's do a ride. So there was one where we actually went out with somebody who was struggling a little bit, but it wasn't somebody who was fighting the system. It was just like, why is he taking so long?
Was Was it a technical issue, or was he just likes to have tea to issue?
Yeah, you just need a little more pep in his step, or less,
Yeah.
little. I mean, we want people to build a relationship with clients, but there's, this is too much. You gotta
I
you gotta
understand.
round it off at some point.
Yeah, sure. I think Cody taught me. He goes, it's once he gets to the bottom of that cup of coffee, he goes, he's got that he gets you get one cup of coffee. Once you get to the bottom, it's time to pivot. I'm almost certain he told me that. And actually, all right, I got to
see, I'm a little
go
older.
ahead.
I'd let you have 2 cups of coffee.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's all right. That's that. Yeah, I like it. Well, he's young. Well, that's part of being younger. You're like, I'm just gonna ease, enjoy the time there. But he's hustling to make that money. So
My
that's
wife
fun.
says I drink my coffee fast too, so
Oh, is that right? Well, maybe that's it. Maybe the KPI is 10.3 seconds for coffee, whether it's one cup or two, or 10.3 minutes rather. Anyway, all right, it's getting goofy. I got a couple of just a couple questions from the audience. You met this came early on. Someone asked, "Can Jim list the 7 fundamentals?" Now, I'm not sure what exact fundamentals, but do you know what he's talking about?
Yes, I do. So I told him each one of my ops managers has 7
That's right.
fundamentals.
Yes.
I'm going to go by memory here. I usually have a list in front of me, but the number 1 is recruiting. Number 2 is training. Number 3 is connecting. Number 4 is send them out to execute the training, if you will.
Yep.
And then, or is that number 4? Number 5 is customer satisfaction. Number 6 is collecting the job, and I skipped one. And it's somewhere after I think after 5, which is sales, which is gross margin.
There you go. That's that magic number.
Yeah. So there's your 7. Again, recruiting, training, connecting, send them out to perform, and then gross margin, and then collecting and customer satisfaction. And those last 3, I mean, the order of them can be a little bit, different, but those are the 7 fundamentals every single day.
That's great. No, yeah, that's a great nugget. And then this looks to be more of a comment than anything. It says, I try and keep vehicles around 4% on the income statement, including fuel and maintenance. So thank you for that little insight. So Jim, just in wrapping up, any final advice you might have for the audience as it pertains to building the budget, or once it's built, and the day-to-day management, making sure those numbers get hit by reviewing tickets and invoices? Anything you'd like to impart that you haven't?
Well, something I'm learning that I guess we had such explosive growth there for a while that I started to kind of coast on my marketing. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you a nugget where I learned the hard way, and that's I took my foot off the pedal and started kind of. I was a little complacent in my marketing, thinking, well, if I just continue to do the same branding that I've done over and over, I'll continue to grow the way I have. And if that media starts not working, say radio, I can just go on TV and make it better. Yeah. Well, I've taken this advice from other EAB members and other TAG members that you got to do some direct response marketing, and you have to be responsible for the number of calls that come in the building. So that's a lesson I think that I kind of got away from, or maybe got complacent. It's not that I didn't know it, but I got complacent in it. So now I'm literally in the process of really focusing, and I don't have it quite dialed in exactly the way I want to, but I'm on my way, well on my way to call volume every single day.
Yeah, I love it. That's good. I appreciate it. Awesome. Well, hey, Jim, thank you for your time. I know we were going to have 2 guests and it ended up just being you and me for over 50 minutes, but this was a lot of fun. Thank you to everyone watching and who participated. The video of today's show will be available on the CertainPath Hub and our YouTube channel shortly after the holidays, so a couple weeks. It'll also be distributed on the Successful Contractor podcast at that point, so please check that out. We have, I think, over 110 episodes at your fingertips. And speaking of the holidays, Jim, I just wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I wish you nothing but even greater success in 2023. And I wish the
Right
same
back
to
at
all
you,
of you
brother.
watching and listening. Thank you, Jim. And this has been
Thank you.
another CertainPath member discussion. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day. That's Jim Bodine of CJS Heating and Air Conditioning, with multiple locations across Ohio and Indiana, talking about how he handles budgeting and invoice review. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If so, please like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're on your favorite podcast player, please leave me a 5-star review. The 2 seconds you take to leave a review will help other success-minded contractors like you find us and hopefully get a little bit better, which elevates our entire industry. And please join me for future episodes. This has been The Successful Contractor, powered by CertainPath.
Support for this podcast comes from Home Depot Pro Trades. At the Home Depot Pro Trades, our job is helping you do yours. Powered by HD Supply, we are uniquely positioned to help drive your business through unrivaled access to professional-grade plumbing, electrical, and HVAC products, and innovative business solutions such as our Stockwise inventory management program, fully customizable to meet your needs and improve productivity. Our national network of distribution centers and more than 2,200 store locations provide national reach with a local focus, giving unmatched convenience and product availability. We power pros to do more. The Successful Contractor podcast is part of the CertainPath family. CertainPath builds successful home service businesses and has for 23 years. We do it by providing contractors with a proven path to success, professional coaching, software solutions, and a member community of over 1,000 contractors just like you. Doubling your sales with a 20% net profit and an inspiring company culture is all possible. Let us show you the way. With CertainPath, success is made certain. Visit www.mycertainpath.com for more information.